Here's Charlie Dickens, Chapter 8, entitled Jocky. His name was Jocky, and he was a fiery Scot with a chip on his shoulder the size of Ben Nevis. When the teacher tried to remonstrate with him, Jocky knocked the books out of his hands, and that was a big mistake. The harassed-looking teacher frog-marched him back into school without a backward glance. The crowd scattered like bored birds, and Tinker brushed himself down and walked back over to a guilty-looking Charlie. "Thanks for your help, mate," he said, as he put his arm around him. He knew that Charlie wasn't into fighting, and he was just pulling his leg, as he loved to do. Tinker had first met Charlie on his first week at school, when he was being bullied in the school corridor, and all of the pupils were walking past unconcerned, all except Tinker. Tinker couldn't stand seeing anyone getting bullied, especially someone as innocent-looking as Charlie. He had a group of boys around him, and his books were scattered all over the corridor. He was crying, and that just made them more vicious. Tinker stepped in, and within 3 minutes, 2 of the bullies were on the floor holding their chins, which he had kicked. The other bully was gathering up Charlie's books with a well-deserved black eye, and after that they became firm friends. Charlie needed someone to keep an eye on him, and Tinker loved Charlie because he made him laugh, and they walked home chatting about all of the fun they were going to have on their school holidays. Charlie was still nervous, as he had expected the thugs to be running after them. "Don't worry," said Tinker, "I'll look after you." Charlie smiled. He'd never had anyone on his side before, and it gave him a fuzzy feeling, like he'd been eating a big spoon of warm porridge. Charlie had never had anyone to protect him. His dad had run away with the secretary when Charlie was only small, but Charlie didn't miss him much. All that Charlie could remember about his dad was the strong stench of his cigars, that he was always in a rush. His dad was in and out of the house like a bewildered bee. It was as if he didn't really want to be there, and it was no surprise with such an attractive-looking secretary waiting for him in a London apartment. All through that time, his mum read and read and read to keep it from her mind. There were books on top of the TV, books behind the sofa, in the kitchen, in the toilet, not literally, and even in the dog kennel. His mum was book mad, and it drove Charlie mad. That is why he loved comics so much. He needed to see pictures, as he was surrounded by words all day. It was exhausting. "Charlie, read this. Charlie, read that," his mum always said as she thumbed another big fat book. She was in her own world, and when Charlie's dad left, never to return, she just kept on reading, as if it didn't matter. But every now and again, Charlie would notice a tear moving through her big spectacles, and his heart would go out to her. And then she would just sniff, and the tear would drop onto the page, and she would say, "I've got a cold, dear." But Charlie knew better. He loved his mum, and he hated seeing her suffering. Charlie hardly ever thought of his dad, and he saw Tinker as his father figure, but he wouldn't dream of telling him. Whenever Charlie felt low, he would lay on his bed and read his Spider-Man comics, and then he would be transported to a world of excitement and adventure. He became Spider-Man, and he flew over the rooftops and shot out webbing and stopped criminals in their tracks. Charlie was more like his mum than he realized. They both preferred fantasy to reality.